Hey guys, welcome to Jay Speak. This week we answer questions. First question, is my favorite amp still orange? Great question. So when I started the channel a couple years ago, I was definitely going through like a I love orange amps thing, and they are fantastic. I still love them. I definitely have less of them now. I think at some point I had 6 of them ish. I don't know. I had the Rocker 30, Rocker 32. I've had the OR 50, Rocker Verb Mark II, the 8030, the OR 100, and the Rocker Verb Mark III. Now, some of them I didn't have at the same time. Like, I got rid of the Mark II when I got the Mark III, so they were never here at the same time. I probably had 6 at any one time, and I thought they were all great. They're great amplifiers. They're right to the point as far as tone. There's no mistaking it's an orange. At this stage, the only ones I have left is the 2 in the back, which is the orange OR 100 and the Rocker Verb Mark III. And I think for me, just the options that both of those amps have and their tone is just, it's wonderful. That's what I want in them, so that's what I kept. The Rocker 30 was a great amp, and I think the only one that I regretted selling that I would buy back is the 8030. I thought the 8030 was great. I think at the time I had like the Lone Star Special, and I had that Vox AC30 hand-wired, and I think at the end of the day I did a comparison, and it was like, you know what, the Vox is better, I'm going to keep the Vox, and I sold the orange. So I think that's the only one that I would buy back. As far as, my favorite kind of amp, Friedman is definitely creeped up, and I love my Fender Twin. The Fender Twin, in general, a Fender clean sound with reverb on it is like the best. I love that tone. As far as distortion, I love Orange, I love Mesa, and I love Friedman. So it's hard to say definitively that it's my favorite. I definitely have a wandering eye / ear, but I do love the oranges. Question 2 kind of piggybacks off question 1, and question 2 was, what was my amp journey? Where did I start, and where have I ended up now? I think I started with, it was called a Fender 212 stage amp. It kind of looked like a Fender Twin, but it was a solid state, and I would use pedals, and I think at the time I was using like Boss or DODs for distortion. Now this is like 20 years ago, so pedals have changed a lot in 20 years, but that was what I used for the longest time. The next amp I ended up getting that was like an amp was a B52 18100, and that was a cool amp, but it was because I couldn't afford what I really wanted, which was a Mesa. I heard that the B52s were good. I think Bruce Ignator was actually making those amps, and it was cool. And then I used an attenuator with it for a while, and it blew it up. And when I took it to an amp tech, they weren't very kind about the B52 build. I actually brought the attenuator in and kind of showed them what I did, and they said I did nothing wrong. I wasn't even really running the attenuator that much, but I was running the amp hotter than it could stand, I guess, with the transformer. Like, it melted a few parts inside, which was totally bizarre. Before that, I never heard that was like a thing. But yeah, apparently that happens. And that amp was dead. It wasn't even worth trying to fix. So I think I ended up selling it for like $100 on Craigslist or something, just to get something out of it to someone that could fix it at their own time, if it was an amp tech or whatever. So that went away, and then the band I was playing in, we started playing more shows and stuff. I was able to get a Mesa half stack, which was awesome, and I bought a Roadster, and I had the oversized 412, and it was my main amp for years, and I loved that amp. I think it kind of got a bad rap, but I also think a lot of people really weren't buying them because it had so many options, it was kind of ridiculous. But I ran it with EL34s. I love Channel 2 Brit mode. Like, the amp was fantastic. If I didn't get into smaller amps at the time, I think I would have kept it. But I stopped playing, the family gets bigger and, I'm home more, whatever. I started buying a lot of lunchbox amps. That's when I got into Orange, actually. I got the Jim Root amp, I got the Tiny Terror. I think I tried both of those, but I also had like the Mini Rec. I had a little Princeton at the time, so I sold my Roadster and I was playing through a bunch of these smaller wattage amps that were fantastic. And I think I recorded the first Golden Empire record with a lot of that stuff. And that's when I got heavily into Strymon, and I had the El Cap and the Flint, and that was like its whole era for me. And then after I got into the Orange, and I love the Jim Root amp, that is like a very underrated amp to me because it does cleans beautifully and this classic rock tone. It's a great amp. I got an 8030, and then I got really heavily into orange, which I just previously answered that question. You know, over the years, I've made my way back to Mesa, and I've had a Mark and a dual rectifier. I got a Triple Crown at some point, and then, you know, I've always loved the AC30 tone, you know, and I've had a couple of the hand-wired heads, and I have one now, you know, like they're considered half-stack with the AC30 hand-wired head and the blues cab. Which I haven't really played on the channel too much, but I'll have to start baking that into videos. Because, like, for me, the main tones, it's like a Fender clean with reverb, the AC30, you know, on the edge of breakup tone, the Mesa dual rec tone, and then, like, you know, more of a classic rock mid-gain kind of thing, which you can get from a Friedman, a Suhr, a Bogner, a Marshall, like any of those amp manufacturers, you can get that tone. And then I got heavily into Friedmans, and, you know, that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm kind of a hoarder, admittedly. Yeah, I mean, it all started with like a Fender amp and some pedals. And actually, one of my favorite bands is Brand New. I think what they used for years was like Fender Super Reverbs and pedals for their dirt tones. I think you can totally get away with that if you find dirt tones you like. And as long as you use the same amplifier and you know how pedals react, it's a very easy process, because then there's no guesswork. So if you use similar guitars, or if you just say, I'm going to have a clean pedal platform kind of thing, I think that's actually a better way to go than like buying 10 amps. You know, buy 10 pedals. It's cheaper, easier. You know, power might become an issue for your board, but it is definitely a better way to go, in my opinion. I can't get there. So ironically, question 3, which is the last question we'll answer this week, kind of goes into the other 3. So question 3, has doing demos influenced your purchases? Yes, it has, heavily, because it's like, oh, well, nobody has compared those amps before or whatever, so I go out and get the amp. And this is all self-funded. Like, my brother-in-law buys a lot of gear. He's a player, so I do borrow stuff from him or purchase things from him. And there's a few of my friends that I've borrowed gear from to demo on the channel, so I don't own all of it. I do borrow some of it. You know, I'm not hooked up with a store. You know, Walrus Audio doesn't send me pedals to try. I have to acquire them myself, whatever means I do that. But yeah, it does definitely influence it. It does help in a way, because, you know, you get onto the gear page forum or whatever, everyone's talking about the new Suhr, this, that, or the other thing, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know, that's how I learned about that thing. Then you go search the internet and there's nothing on YouTube, and then it's like, well, you know what? Why not give it a go? Or like a pedal comes up on Stupid Deal of the Day. You know what? If I wasn't doing YouTube demos, I probably wouldn't have bought it. So yeah, it absolutely does influence what I do. It's still fun. I get to try more gear, and there's definitely pieces that I don't think I would have tried, and I actually really liked in the end. So you could say a lot of different things about that, because it's a blessing and a curse at the end of the day, I think. I get to try more gear, but it's also costly and time consuming, and at some point you're looking for more gear than you're actually like playing your guitar, which is like the shame of all of it. So at the end of the day, the channel did absolutely, you know, impact, you know, my purchasing habits, etc. You know, reverb didn't help either, but that's a different story. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. You can hit up my email, contactthej@gmail.com. As always, thanks for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Many more videos to come. Don't miss one sub.